Welcome students to lesson 9 of the Urban World topic. In this lesson we're going to be exploring the economic challenges facing NEE cities, with a specific focus on Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. What is it that people lack in terms of the economy? It's jobs. Let's find out why this is and what the city has done to solve this problem. And then we'll ask ourselves, how successful have they been? Please write the date, title and learning objective and have a pen and paper ready to learn. Time to review prior learning. Please write 1 to 10, answer the questions from memory and then mark your answers. Game time. Number 1, what was the average life expectancy in Rio's favelas in 2012? It was about 45 years. 2, in 2012, what percent of students completed secondary school? It was about 57%. 3, what is the main dam that provides electricity to Rio? It's called the Itaipu Dam. 4, in 2012, what percent of water in Rio was lost through leaks? It's about 37%, so more than a third of water never reached people's homes because of leaking pipes. 5, what percent of Rio had a local health clinic in 2010? 55%. 6, what are the poor, newly built places in Rio de Janeiro called? Favelas. 7, what is the oldest zone in Rio? The central zone. 8, in which zone is most of Rio's industry located? It's the north. 9, what is the richest area of Rio called? Barra da Tijuca. 10, crime deters businesses from setting up in favelas, leading to high unemployment. Give yourselves a mark out of 10. If you got 8 or more, fantastic. Any questions that you got wrong, come back to this in a week's time and test yourselves on them again. To introduce the idea of economic problems in NEE cities, I'm going to show you a photo and some questions. Answer the questions using your understanding. Go for it. Number 1, what is happening to the population in NEE cities? You should have said that the population is growing rapidly in most NEE cities around the world. 2, in what parts of Rio is crime highest? You may have said the favelas, or the new parts of the city, or the north, or the poorer parts of the city. Any of those would have been acceptable. 3, why are there many unemployed people, for example in the picture, in Rio de Janeiro? The key idea here is that many people in Rio de Janeiro lack the skills to access high-paid jobs or the skills to start businesses. Additionally, high crime in Rio discourages businesses from investing in poor areas, which means there's a lack of jobs there. 4, how might education affect unemployment? Well, you could have said that education might reduce unemployment by giving people the skills they need to be able to access higher paid jobs, such as office jobs, or retail jobs, or jobs involving research, such as in universities or technology companies. Okay. 2 big questions we need to understand today. What are the main economic challenges in Rio de Janeiro, but similarly, what are the challenges in all NEE cities? And secondly, what is Rio de Janeiro doing to solve these challenges and how successful have these solutions been? So the first question, what are the main economic challenges in Rio de Janeiro? Well, let's start by looking at the good things. Rio's economy is very successful. It's one of Brazil's richest cities, and it is the 4th largest economy in all of South America as a single city. More than 25,000 people in Rio de Janeiro have jobs in construction in 2017. In 2014-2016 specifically, many jobs were in constructing infrastructure for the Olympics and the World Cup. But jobs in construction are very common and accessible in Rio de Janeiro. Additionally, there are large offices of big companies in Rio de Janeiro's centre. One company, the largest media company in Brazil, called Grupo Globo, is similar to Sky News in Britain, or Sky Radio, and it involves communicating via mass media across South America, so TV, radio, the internet. This company, Grupo Globo, provides more than 1,500 jobs in its main headquarters in the centre of Rio de Janeiro. High-paid jobs in the formal economy. Formal economy means that you are given a contract, so you get a specific amount of pay and you can't be fired easily. You pay taxes to the government so that you're protected by the government. And finally, tourism is an important sector in Rio de Janeiro which provides many jobs, not only in surfing instructors but also scuba diving and tour guides around the favelas and the surrounding regions. So these three examples show that Rio's economy is very successful. However, there are significant challenges afoot. Let me show you. Not everyone works in the formal economy with reliable high-paid jobs that allows them to put their kids into private education or get a quality house. 20% of people in Rio de Janeiro work in the informal economy like this. They sell beers on the street, or they sell souvenirs and trinkets on the beach. The informal economy is typically low paid and unreliable. You can lose your job at any time. However, these two gentlemen who sell their beer in Santa Marta favela and just south of that favela in a rich neighborhood in Rio, they do so because their lack of skills prevents them from getting jobs in higher paid jobs in the formal economy. Consequently, this is their best opportunity to make an income. A risk that comes with working in the informal economy, especially that in favelas, is that your job security is affected by gangs. Very often, people who work in the informal economy are threatened by gangs for a certain amount of their money, or they are prevented from working in that job at all in certain parts of favelas because it's in different territory of a different gang. Consequently, the informal economy is low paid, it's unreliable, and it makes it difficult for people to access government services such as healthcare and education. Because for those things, you need a formal job. Because, for example, you need to provide a record for your taxes to be able to get access to a hospital. Unemployment is the other major problem. Owing to the high crime rates and low education rates in Rio's favelas, unemployment averages a quarter, 25% in Rio's favelas, although it's lower in Rocinha and much higher in City of God and in Mare favela in the northeast. But unemployment within the favelas is generally much higher than in the asphalt, rich parts of Rio de Janeiro. You have these gentlemen working in the informal economy and these people lining up queuing for jobs as a result of unemployment. The two principal reasons in Rio de Janeiro why these issues are so prevalent, which means common, is high crime, which discourages investment by companies, thereby preventing jobs, and a lack of education provided to the people. In Brazil, a scary statistic exists, which is this. In the richest countries of the world, called the OECD countries, 90% of students age 11 were able to answer a simple maths question that proved the quality of education in those countries. In Brazil, only 11% of students age 11 were able to answer this simple maths question. This was widely spread around the world as an example of how Brazil's education system is failing its children and thereby preventing them from accessing high-paid jobs. So these problems cause an informal economy and unemployment in Brazil and in Rio de Janeiro. So what has the government of Rio done about it? Unemployment, the key problem. How do you solve it? Education and crime reduction. These are the two strategies that have been considered most important. This is Claudia Costin. She was, until 2017, the head of Rio de Janeiro's education department of the government. So she was responsible for improving education in the city. And she recognized that education in the favelas especially was not good enough. And she knew that the reason why was because good teachers didn't turn up to those schools because it was too dangerous. And crime was preventing those schools from being able to operate effectively. So she came up with a plan. And it's called the Schools of Tomorrow system. There are 151 schools of tomorrow in Brazil's and Rio de Janeiro's poorest areas. These schools of tomorrow are given extra money, up to 50% extra money by Rio's government to encourage the best teachers to go and work in these schools, and also to provide extra resources such as textbooks, desks, exercise books and uniforms for the students. As a result of the Schools of Tomorrow program, which began in 2010 and goes on until today, school results have improved. Brazil's ranking in the worldwide education score system called the PISA system, PISA, has gone up by 20%. So it's 20% higher in the global rankings among these schools as a result of the Schools of Tomorrow system. However, there's another problem. Education of children is one thing, and this has definitely helped improve education. The best teachers now often work in favelas, even though it's more dangerous because they get paid better and because the schools have better funding. But what about the adults? The adults who've missed out on an education because they live in favelas and because they've been forced to get jobs by their low-income parents. You have to deal with them too. Or because they've got pregnant very young. What Claudia Costin realised is that free childcare was needed as well. So she set up a system where the government would provide volunteers and paid workers who would take care of children of young parents during the day in Rio. This allowed these young parents to be able to go to university and get a college degree for free, thereby allowing them to access higher paid jobs. This system specifically and in particular focused on young mothers. As a result of this free childcare program, which was enacted in Rio de Janeiro, the average income of women in favelas increased by 20% in the last 10 years because they were able to get a better education and therefore they were able to get higher paid jobs. They were also able to spend more time in work because they didn't have to take care of their kids. So through these two policies, the Schools of Tomorrow and free childcare, Claudia Costin and Rio de Janeiro's government have improved education and reduced unemployment as a consequence in the last 10 years. But what about crime? Education alone is not enough without a safe environment for people to learn and a safe environment for people to be able to get to school. Not only students, but also teachers. The UPPs, of which an example was in the Favela Bairro program, have been spread all across Rio's favelas now. Here's how they work. Teams of up to 100 soldiers and heavily armed police operate within the favelas, and they walk the streets in groups of 3, ensuring that armed people do not operate in the favelas. Gangs do not operate. This allows parents to take their children to school safely, and it allows the parents, through the free childcare, to go to study at the same time. So by making the streets safe, the UPPs have improved both childcare and child and adult education. However, these police do not just leave after a few weeks, after the gangs have been removed. No, they stay. They stay on street corners, and this is called community policing. In Rio de Janeiro's favelas, the most dangerous ones especially, the UPPs live in the community, and they're constantly present. This allows these parents, such as these here, to take their kids to school. So you have a network of projects focusing on education and crime reduction that have led to a reduction in unemployment. Why? Because as the children get a better education from the Schools of Tomorrow, and the adults get a better education from the private university and the free childcare, the children in future will have access to better paid jobs, and the adults will have access to better paid jobs immediately. Similarly, the reduction in crime attracted investment into Rio's favelas. I showed you the example of Complexo de Alemão, but this has happened in numerous favelas. A solar company has invested in Rocinha favela and Santa Marta favela, installing solar panels on the roofs. It knows people can afford them now more easily because they have better paid jobs, and it's safe to set up their business there. Time to assess learning. Explain why adult education in Rio's favelas is important as well as child education. Adult education, you should have said, allows adults to upskill, to improve their skills, for example in computers which means they can gain access to jobs in the formal economy, such as those in Grupo Globo, the communications company in the centre of Rio. As a result of their higher incomes, they can afford to improve their homes or even move home to the asphalt, the rich parts, and pay for their child's education so they can go to a good school. Why are the schools of tomorrow effective at improving child education in Rio's favelas? That's question 2. You should have said, because the schools of tomorrow increase funding for both teachers and resources, they attract better teachers, train teachers better, and they provide better resources for the students so they can learn better. For example, there are more computers in schools of tomorrow than non-schools of tomorrow. So children can practice writing and researching and their computer skills, all necessary for gaining access to good jobs. Question 3. Why is community policing important? You should have said that community policing is important because it provides a constant presence, preventing gangs from being allowed to operate in the streets in Rio's favelas. Gangs not only murder people, but they also extort them, stealing money from people working in the informal economy, and they discourage parents from sending their children to school. So community policing also builds the relationship between police and the community, thereby improving trust and causing people to go to the police for help if there's a problem. All of this improves safety in the favelas. Time to embed learning so you don't forget it and so that you can really practice your knowledge. Answer these questions using your understanding and then mark your answers. Okay, 1. Construction jobs. Any of these points. I strongly recommend you add the keywords that I've got here, such as demand, economic growth, important events, and that you add examples. 2. 2 challenges. Any 2 of these. Make sure you've explained them as I have. Don't just have half the explanation. So you need each point after I have these little dashes. That is the explanation, such as here and here. Question 3. 2 ways that urban crime leads to high unemployment. Any 2 of these. And finally, explain why Rio's free childcare intervention was effective. Make sure you have both of these points well explained. Please give yourselves a mark out of 14 and add in green pen any parts that you missed or any corrections. That is so important if you want to improve. If you got below 12, come back to these questions in a week's time, watch the explanation again and then answer them again to make sure that you improve. From the lesson, write 2 questions. Answer them from memory and then test yourselves in these questions in a week. Next lesson, we are going to be returning to the question of social services provided by a city, and we're going to look at how Rio has managed to reduce the challenges of providing services to its people, and we will find out how successful they have been. Join me then.